If you're a fan of classic slasher movies, then you may want to check out this movie, Death Call, as it's known here in the UK, also known as Old 37 in the US. And this one's being released in the UK by High Flyers Entertainment. And basically it's it's a little bit of a twist on the kind of slasher genre. This one features Kane Hodder and Bill Moseley, and they basically play psychotic brothers who go around in this ambulance and basically turn up at crash sites, basically with the idea being that they're kind of duping their victims into thinking they're originally going to help them, but of course they're going to kind of take them back and do all sorts of horrid things to them. The main issue with this film is it's kind of generic, and I'll come on to it again in a little bit second, but I want to talk about the opening scene, because this is not a spoiler, because it literally is the opening scene, but this film opens really strong, and you'll think you're going to be in for a real kind of disturbing film. So it basically is a flashback, and we find out that our two serial killing brothers actually had a very abusive father who was kind of the same sort of thing, and we see this guy turn up at this sort of crash site, and there's this woman who's been injured, and instead of helping her, basically he's kind of smothering her, and he's literally like fingering this girl's sort of open wound in the leg. It's pretty, it's pretty sick when you kind of think about it, and he's sort of tasting the blood. It's some harsh stuff, and you think, man, this film's going to be hardcore, but it never really gets back to that kind of level of depravity, I don't think. When we go through the movie, we do see that there's a fair amount of kills and stuff, but it's never to the kind of degree of that, I wouldn't say, never kind of that shocking. Some of the kills are kind of done somewhat off screen, so we don't kind of really see it. Now, the main issue of this film is it is kind of generic, like I say. It just falls into these kind of typical traps that we see so many kind of like slasher films in. And you could argue maybe that it's trying to be a bit of a throwback to these kind of like slasher films of old, especially considering some of the cast here. But nevertheless, it doesn't really do anything new with this genre, and this, the way the kids are acting, especially to me, is just so annoying when you think we're in 2015 and we've seen so many of these type of films, and people seem to be acting like just complete idiots, basically, and don't really seem to act like proper human beings. There's a few plot holes in this film as well that you could argue and sort of take pot shots at. And the other main issue that I have is the main character, the female lead in this one, who is this kind of I guess you would say she's the protagonist to a certain degree, but she just comes across as kind of unlikable and pretty vapid. I mean, the majority of our kind of victims cast, if you like, are kind of very much your sort of teens who have just too totally into their sort of like self-image and kind of up their own arses. And this girl's supposed to be like the kind of the anti-version of that, but she isn't. She is just as bad. I mean, she's just kind of like wanting to sort of ape this sort of popular girl and kind of, be this kind of something she's not. So it just comes across as this such a sort of like display of like negative reinforcement and kind of body image and stuff like that unfortunately she just comes across as kind of very unlikable as well. So disappointing in the fact that I didn't like the kind of the main character. I didn't like the hero characters. There's a cop and hero who I kind of liked, and I did like the main character's relationship with her mother as well, which I thought was handled a little bit more maturely. But in regards to the kind of the younger cast, the kind of the kids, the teenagers, wherever they, however old they're meant to be, didn't like them. Cliches and unlikable characters. And then in regards to the actual positives of this film, I think it's kind of nice to have two sort of serial killers, especially as they're kind of brothers. I didn't feel like the relationship was explored as much as I would have liked. We see some flashbacks throughout the movie, and you kind of get a sense of it, but I would have liked to have seen a little bit more. But nonetheless, I do like the kind of the on-screen presence of Kane Hodder and Bill Moseley as these kind of like these serial killer guys. And Kane Hodder's kind of the muscle wolf, if you like. He's kind of got this mask on, whilst Bill Moseley is the more of the brains behind the kind of the situation, and you have that kind of dynamic. I have to say, mild spoiler, this kind of film takes a little bit of a left turn at the end in regards to what some characters do. I didn't really see that the reason for this kind of left turn. You'll know what I mean when you see it, but it just kind of came out of nowhere to me. I mean, these guys have been doing this for a long, long time. Something happens at the end, and I didn't think it made a lot of sense. But the actual, like I said, this film opens really strong. That opening scene is very, very powerful and very disturbing, and it kind of it sets your kind of expectations. Oh, man, you're in for a wild and sickening ride here, but it never kind of reaches those levels again. There are a few kind of like gore shots here and there, and it's never a boring film. It's kind of entertaining on a kind of the most base level, but unfortunately never kind of gets to those kind of like truly kind of classic sort of status that I think it could have done if it has a little bit more finesse with this film. But it's kind of fun. I still kind of enjoyed it. It kind of goes on at a fairly brisk pace. So I think if you are a slasher fan, I think if you like the movie Wrong Turn, it kind of reminded me of that in a way. You'll kind of like this movie as well. And like I said, Kane Hodder, always, I'm quite a fan of Kane Hodder, and I think he's kind of fun to watch on screen when he's kind of playing these kind of roles, which he does quite often, but he's always kind of fun to watch. There's also a few cameo here and there that you kind of recognise people with as well. So if you're a kind of B-movie horror hound, you're probably going to want to check this one out if you're a slasher film and you kind of just like your standard kind of slasher film that don't really offer anything new. This is going to be another one to that kind of collection. I recently reviewed Charlie's Farm and I kind of thought the same thing about that. So if you like Charlie's Farm, you kind of may like this one. Anyway, I'm going to give this movie a 5 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave a comment and I will look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.